making this happen. We have Dr. Robert Long, I was talking to him uh, earlier that he's a famous face in Brazil. He has produced some trainings and he has a nice book uh, in Portuguese with the help of a good friend, Gilval. Also some work with someone that is a good friend as well that has done some workshops and also have given me an interview for this channel, the Dr. Nipin Anand. So I think we are uh, moving the right direction on having the biggest names in safety and operations and here with us. So thank you for accepting, Doctor. But before we start, a quick note for the viewers. Links, research mentioned in this episode will be in the description. If you enjoy the conversation, please like, subscribe, and leave your questions below. To start, could you tell us briefly about your background and what led you to develop the social psychology of risk?
Okay. Well, you can tell I'm not a young person. So I started a long time ago, um, and I was interested in social psychology of risk, probably going back to 1971.
Wow.
Uh, that was my first interest, but it wasn't the social psychology of risk, it was the social psychology of teaching. So in 1971, I was training to become a school teacher, and I came across the ideas of social psychology back then. And really, it was from then on that I became really captivated by social psychology in general. Um, so I read a lot and researched a lot in social psychology over time. And then about 25 years ago, so what are we talking about? 2001, after doing several different things, and I have a number of different careers between 1970 and 2000. So in that 30-year period, I did many things, including, getting a PhD and several master's degrees and writing books and different things. But in about 2001, I accidentally was brought into the risk and safety industry. And when I kind of accidentally was brought into that industry, I discovered that it didn't know anything about social psychology, that it was an industry consumed with engineering and controls and all that kind of traditional safety thinking. So I decided I would write a book called Risk Makes Sense, and that was released over 20 years ago. I wrote that book, well, not 20 years ago, but anyway, I wrote a book so that the ideas of social psychology could be brought to bear on risk and safety, not teaching, but you can apply social psychology to any discipline, medicine, law, social work, teaching, whatever. So I applied the ideas of social psychology to risk, and I've been doing that ever since. Um, and social psychology stands really in quite a contrast to the popular philosophies in safety. So the safety industry is very much consumed by behaviorism and individualism and a mechanical view of the world. So every time there's a problem, safety thinks you can develop another checklist to solve the problem. Or every time safety encounters some problem, it looks for an engineering solution. It doesn't look for social psychological solutions or cultural solutions. So I think what I offer the industry is a very, very different perspective in the way we can think about tackling risk. So I focus much, much more on tackling risk than I do about the idea of getting the outcome of safety, because safety is really just a temporary moment in our lives. Most of our lives, we are not safe. Most of our lives, we get sick or we get injured or we have accidents or things don't go well. And then we learn to be resilient to cope with those things in our lives, you know. So some people, I have a friend recently who was born with a disabled child. The child was born that way, you know, and for the rest of my friend's life, he will be caring in resilience for how to manage the severe disabilities of his child. So life doesn't always work out for the success of zero harm. In fact, the real purpose of life is to learn how to be resilient in the face of fallibility and harm. And uh, harm is inevitable. If you live in this world, you will be harmed. The question is not how do we reduce it to zero. The question is, how do we work around it? How do we work through it? How do we adapt to it? And how do we build resilience in people in the way they tackle risk? So I don't focus so much on safety. I focus much, much more on what is uncertain and the nature of risk. So that brings us up, I guess, to the year 2026. I am semi-retired. I don't fly all over the world anymore. I could, but I've decided not to. I do things like this. I do Zoom workshops, or I do face-to-face, in-person coaching for people who fly to my city. So, for example, in January this year, only 3 months ago, two people from Romania
Wow,
flew to study with me for 2 weeks, and there's videos up on that and everything. So they flew from Romania to Canberra just to study face to face with me for 2 weeks, and that happens all the time. People will say, "Rob, how can we learn from you?" And I say, "Well, jump on a plane and come here, and I'll give you a week of my time." So you may remember last year, um, I didn't fly to Brazil, but Nip and Anand did.
yes, he
Uh,
told.
and and Nippon does SPoR, as does Pedro Ferreira, who also teaches SPoR. And so they flew to Brazil, and they taught my ideas and my methods in Brazil. And that's probably the way it's going to work in the future. It won't be me, it will be coaches and mentors who understand the social psychology of risk. And that's happening all over the world. I mean, today in Canada or the United States or in Europe, there are people teaching SPoR today. There are people coaching the methods of SPoR today. And so I just enjoy the fact that they're spreading those things, and I can sit in my little study in Canberra and not have to fly everywhere and have the stress of all that stuff.
Great. So I'm taking the opportunity to send a big hug for Pedro Ferreira. There is a friend as well. He also has
Yeah.
spoken with me
I
for
wrote
this
to Pedro
event.
this morning.
Wow.
I
Yes.
wrote to Pedro this morning. He's just completed his master's qualification in SPoR, and he and I are lining up some free workshops in June on the work of Professor Carl Wake.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. So, Robert, how would you explain sport for people that has never heard about it? That is the majority of people here in Brazil, at least.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a lot of people have been taught um, traditional safety,
Yes.
which is all about uh, learning the regulation, learning the legislation, then recognizing hazards in the workplace, controlling hazards to try to reduce injury rates. That's the common approach to
Yes.
risk and safety. And that's very much the risk and safety curriculum looks a lot at hazards and causes and investigations. And it's a very mechanical approach to dealing with hazards in the workplace. There's nothing wrong with that approach, except to say it's a very small and a narrow approach, which really doesn't tackle the critical issues of social, ethical, political, psychological issues in the workplace associated with risk.
Yeah.
So the traditional risk and safety stuff which people learn is not wrong, but it's really just beginner stuff. It's really just it's really only first steps. If you want to really mature and grow up in risk and safety, you've got to start tackling the challenging stuff like how do human beings make decisions unconsciously? Things like how does the way we treat people have a moral outcome? How can we undertake risk and safety actions without bullying people? How can we look after people's psychosocial health and at the same time, tackle the problems of hazards and risks and organizing and culture and so on? All of that kind of stuff is much, much more sophisticated than the beginner steps in risk and safety. And that's really the level where I pitch the things that I do. I try to get people who are at the beginner level to step up and tackle the harder things, the more difficult and challenging things, which risk and safety doesn't really do much on at all. It really doesn't do much of that at all.
Yeah, so I used to say that when I was a child, I was doing child stuff. Now that I'm an adult, I try
Yeah,
to do adult stuff. So, but
yeah,
you and I see a lot of safety professionals and others in operations start doing traditional stuff and retire doing the same stuff. Do you
yeah.
think it's a problem of trying to survive in the companies trying to save their work, or do you think
Mm.
it's just a matter of not having enough information or not developing themselves for any other reason? Do you think they deliver what companies are expecting from them and that's it? Or are your
Well,
thoughts on?
there are two problems. The first problem is the risk and safety world itself.
Yeah,
Its training, its curriculum, and the way it develops safety people. Um, and there's a lot missing in that introduction to risk and safety, a lot.
yeah,
It's a very small, closed curriculum, and it really doesn't prepare people for the workplace at all. Because when you get to the workplace, risk and safety is all about people and relationships and social decisions, but you don't get that training in a safety diploma. You don't get that. So there are two problems. There's the way the safety industry trains people, and then there's the expectations of leaders and managers in organizations about what they want as well. And sometimes those two worlds reinforce each other. And so we end up with the risk and safety world being like policemen in the workplace.
yeah,
Right? And so the idea of risk and safety is a police job. You go around finding what people are doing wrong and you correct it. Now, there's actually nothing wrong with that either. There's nothing wrong with policemen or police women. We need policemen in our society. You know, they help us manage what the community needs for safety, and so on. But policing is only one approach
Yeah.
to get an outcome. It's only one approach. So policing has a valid place in risk and safety, but it's not the only approach. There are other approaches, and for those, you need a new method,
Yeah.
right? So policing is a method, right? SPoR, what I do, is a different method, and it gives you a different outcome, and it has a different approach. So in my world, I don't say get rid of the basics of safety, because I think you still need the basics. You've got to find out what goes wrong. You've
Yeah.
got to find out what's not working, and you've got to work on trying to make that better. That's a basic starting place for safety.
Yeah.
But then it's about time that you grew up a bit more. So previously you mentioned children. Okay. So the way we raise a 5-year-old child is not the same way we raise a 15-year-old child. A lot happens between the age of 5 and 15. At the age of 5, some of the methods that you do work. They work. They get an outcome.
Yeah.
But you can't give those same methods to a 15-year-old, because the 15-year-old teenager will rebel against you and will challenge that method you used to think that works. And so parents learn, 15, 16, 17-year-olds, you need a new method. You need a new approach. And then, of course, when your children grow up, so my children are 41, 43, 45, and 47. They're my 4 children. They're in their 40s. When your children get to their 40s, you need a new method again. The methods you had when they were 5 don't work anymore.
Yeah.
And so you need a new method. So that's how it works in SPoR. You start the beginning in risk and safety with the baby steps. And when you're ready to jump to something that's more effective and a different method, then I can give you and offer you a new approach and a new method that works. And so that's what SPoR does. It
Great.
gives you a new approach and new methods.
Yeah. So just for the records, I am 43. So potentially
Oh, well, you're the same age as my eldest daughter.
yeah. So
She's a school teacher.
wow, nice profession, really noble.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh
By the
okay,
way, I have a book which is a case study
it works.
of it works. Yeah, yeah. It's a case study of my method being used by a global organization in Europe. And so the global HSE manager, Brian Darlington, and I wrote a case study on the method I just talked about to you,
Really
right?
nice.
So I told you that SPoR has a different method. You know, some people think when a child is 5, you can smack them on the legs, right? Or you can smack them and it will change their behavior. Yep. Well, try that on a 15-year-old and see how that works.
Yeah.
It won't work, right?
You
So,
better not try.
no, well, that's right. You don't try, but you need a new method. So this is a method to help. It's a new method that works, and this is a case study about how it works. So it would be exactly the same if you were in a parenting and you wanted advice on a new method of how to work with teenagers. You
Yeah.
would need a new method, right? So that's how this book works, and that's free to download on my website. Jump on my
Doctor,
website.
taking the
Beg your pardon?
opportunity, my next question is going that direction so you can keep
Yep,
the thinking
yep,
with the book.
yep, yep.
So
You go for
when
it.
you first applied the sport in organizations, what surprised you most about how people actually make risk decisions? because they had a method before and you
Yeah,
brought
yeah,
something new. So what was the impressions that you
yeah.
have?
Well, yeah, they have a method, but it doesn't work socially.
Okay.
It might work individually, but it won't work socially. So, for example, when you have a 5-year-old, peer group pressure is not important.
Yeah.
When you have a 15-year-old, peer pressure is everything.
Yes.
And that's like when you come in sport. When you begin in safety, you have a number of controls that might work. But when you enter an organization with a sophisticated culture made up of complex social arrangements,
Yeah.
you have to understand very differently the social psychological pressures to get outcomes. And they're not the same as traditional safety. They don't work. So you need a new social psychological approach. And we have different visual verbal methods. We don't add any more paperwork when you talk about what I do. Our methods are not based on paperwork. They're based upon skills in listening, conversation, visualizing, concept mapping, and working with people in groups, large and small, to get better decision making, not back to the idea of here are the controls, here we get the outcome. That's beginner safety. If you want to go to the next level, then that's documented in this book. But I've published 18 books, not one. There are 18 books. They're all free. I don't charge for my books. They're free. So you can't say, oh, Rob's making all this money. I'm not making any money. This is free, right? So for people in Brazil who don't have the money, yep, here's your book. It's free. Buy it, read it, and learn how this new method works. And it's very, very descriptive, and there's lots and lots of illustrations and practical ways of going forward. So it's a very, very practical book. It's not an academic book. So,
It's a
so yeah,
great gift for our viewers. Great gift. Go
yeah,
to
yeah,
the
sure. For your
website
viewers,
and
jump online, download for free, read the book, and it will explain to you what's the next step beyond basic safety. What's the next step beyond uh, controls and behaviors? Now we move up to thinking, social pressure, unconscious decision making, heuristics, which is psychological shortcuts, then political pressure and things like ethical decision making. They're very, very complex compared to just the hierarchy of controls. Very, very. The hierarchy of controls can't be applied to politics, social, cultural, or psychosocial matters. It can't be applied to those things. It can only be applied to physical things. So you've got to get a new method. So I'd invite your viewers, download the book. It's free. It's yours. Go for it.
yeah. So that gives us great context to so let's move from the origins to the how the ideas work in practice.
Yep.
Because one phrase that we hear a lot is normalization of risk. So how do you think leaders can spot early signs that risk is being normalized in their teams?
Okay. You've raised the problem of recognition
Hmm.
and perception. We do a lot on recognition and perception. Again, you know, sometimes people only see what they're looking for.
Yeah,
Yep. So if you're a trained policeman, then you're looking for crime. You're looking for people who break rules. Yep. And that's the world view. That's the way they see the world. But if you're trained to look for social, cultural, political, and ethical issues, then you can see them. But if you're not trained to see them, you don't see them. It's like the gorilla experiment. Everyone's seen the gorilla experiment. You know, people pass a basketball and in comes a gorilla, and no one sees the gorilla because they're counting the passes of the basketball. Well, that's the same. Unless you're educated in the social psychology of risk, unless you're educated in the psychology of perception, the psychology of goal setting, the psychology of group and cultural formation, the idea of how human beings make unconscious decisions, so decisions they make without thinking about it. Unless you're educated in that way, you actually can't see them. Now, it's like putting on a new pair of glasses, right? So if I want to read a book, this is how I read the book. I put on my glasses, right? But if I want to go outside where the sun is bright, I see the world differently. I put on a new set of glasses. Well, that's what SPoR does. Traditional safety is like this, and there's nothing wrong with it. But SPoR gives you a new lens. You start to be able to see things differently. You see psychosocial hazards. You see social psychological risks. You see cultural issues. You see unconscious issues. You see cultural things which people are not trained to see. So a lot of people think that safety is about correcting behaviors. But we go much, much deeper than that. We go to what decision and what thinking came before that behavior. What thinking and what pressure in a group came before that behavior. Because we'd rather go to the source of what causes the behavior than just responding and reacting to the behavior and correcting the behavior. We go in SPoR, we go much, much deeper. What is the way that people see the world that leads to this outcome? And
Great.
so, if I want a policeman, I'll go to a policeman. But if I want a social worker or a community worker, I go to social worker and community worker for a different outcome, right? And so that's what SPoR does. We offer you a different way of seeing the world for a different outcome in tackling risk.
Great.
So it's
Professor,
like the glasses. There you go. But
I
I don't
love
need
it. I
I
love
don't
it.
need that.
I love it, the analogy.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Yeah. And
Professor,
we have got, look, we've got many, many practical models. If we had time, I could show you one of my models. It's a method where we use a board or a piece of paper and we teach people to visually map what they hear, right?
oh,
It takes about 5 or 6 sessions to teach that to you, but we move away from paperwork. We listen to what people say, we map it on a board and the relationships on the board visually, and then the risk assessment is we take a picture of the map and that's our risk assessment. So
and that's
it's not like anything done in beginner safety.
and this is not only practical but also repeatable.
Yeah, correct. And
Mhm.
we call it IQ.
IQ, yeah, great.
So we call it, we say, okay, what are the intelligent cues? Intelligent cues. What are the intelligent cues you are listening for and looking for when you walk into a group? So can you recognize the cues? But the cues are not behaviors. That's traditional safety. See behaviors as the cue. We look for other things which you have to learn, which are indicators and cues to recognize what's going on. Some of them are cultural, some of them are political, some of them are ethical, some of them are psychosocial. But you actually have to be taught how to recognize them, just like you have to be taught how to read a book or how to read anything. So that's one of our basic practical tools and methods we use to teach people to go from the beginner steps to the next steps. And it's a very clear, practical method. It's not a slogan. It's not some silly academic idea. We have people all over the world doing this,
Yeah.
all over the world. They do it every day as a way of engaging with other people at a much higher level of thinking about risk and safety.
Yeah. Professor, two
Yep.
questions that I want to address to you. First one is every time that we see something going wrong or not as expected in an organization,
Yep.
usually the leaders say that we need to change the culture. Oh, we need to build a safety culture. We need a new culture
Yep.
and everything. What's your thoughts on this? Do you think the culture can be changed? Is there a strong relation between results and the culture? So I want you to stress a little bit on safety culture, if you believe
Yeah,
that
but
this exists
yeah,
or
but
if
there's a
it's
big
just a
yeah,
slogan.
there's a big problem though. There's a big problem. How do you define culture? And the leaders and safety leaders as well are not trained in understanding culture.
Yeah,
They don't they're not anthropologists. Nipan Anand is an anthropologist. There are very, very few people in risk and safety have the skills and the knowledge of Nipan Anand.
yes,
Very few.
I
They're
agree.
not they're not anthropologists. They're safety people. They're engineers. Well, engineers and safety people don't have that education in anthropology. And so most leaders in organizations talk about culture and they actually mean either systems or behavior. Well, systems and behavior is not culture. Systems and behavior are very, very small parts of culture, very small. Yep. And so, if I was to say to you, I'm going to fly to Brazil and I will understand Brazilian culture by just walking into the town centre and looking at behaviors, right? Is that going to explain Brazilian culture? The answer is no.
No,
In fact, without an understanding of the history of Brazil, you
that's
can't
impossible.
understand its culture. But I'll give you something even more challenging. Nearly every single person in safety who writes about culture ignores religion,
Yeah,
ignores it. It's never mentioned.
never,
Well, if I flew today into Brazil and I didn't understand the religion of Brazil, I would not understand your culture.
never.
And if I saw Carnival, for example, right, and I brought some, you know, religious belief to Carnival, I would think that's some sort of immoral activity. I'd make
Yeah,
a moral judgment, right?
exactly.
All of that, all of that is missing when people think about culture. They think culture is behaviors or systems, and it's not. There are lots of things hidden unconsciously which you have to get yourself around that are critical to culture. I've mentioned two: history, right, and religion. But you buy any book on safety culture and they don't discuss the religious way that safety works. They don't discuss it at all. They don't talk about the rituals of safety. They don't talk about the mythologies of safety. But without myth and religion, without myth and ritual, you can't understand culture. And so here we've got all these people running around saying, change safety culture, and they don't even know what ritual or myth is. They don't even know what it is. So they're not talking about culture, they're talking about behaviors and systems. And that's again baby step stuff. That's
Yeah,
beginner safety stuff. So the first thing I would say is you need to go to a much higher level, an anthropological level, but you can influence culture, but you need to understand what you're doing. So you need a new re-education beyond basic beginner safety. If you want to change safety culture, then you've got to step up to a new method, a new methodology, and you would need to talk to people like Nippon, or you'd need to do education programs like we offer in order to understand what you're doing. And most people in risk and safety, when they talk about safety culture, don't even understand what they're doing. They don't understand what it's about. And we know that because they never mention ritual or mythology or religion, etc. It's always about behaviors and systems. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, and thank you for bringing this because I share the same opinion. But usually the local prophet doesn't have a word in your own land. So
No,
thank you for bringing it
no.
up because I totally agree. And I think this is impossible when somebody asks a safety person to change the safety culture. They don't have a clear idea on what they are asking.
Yeah.
And
Well,
most of the
it's
safety professionals, they accept this task, thinking about changing the behavior and everything
yeah.
gets
Well, I don't.
messed up.
I don't think safety. I don't think. I never use the word safety professional. I don't think safety people are professional in the way we use that word. So, professional people, doctors, lawyers, and social workers, teachers are all trained in the ethics of what they do. Safety people are not trained in the ethics of what they do. Ethics is not important. And the key to professionalism is ethics. And there is no space in currently at the moment in the risk and safety world to look at the ethics of how safety conducts its behavior. So I don't use the word professional because I think it's got a long way to go before it becomes really professional. But let me tell you, I would not go to a safety person for advice on brain surgery. I would not go to a safety person for advice on child protection. I would not go to a safety person on theories of learning or what school teachers know because they don't know it. So that's not where you seek advice. So you don't go to safety people seeking advice on culture, and you don't go to safety people seeking advice on ethics. It's not in their educational history. If you want to know about culture, start having a conversation with Nipan Anand, who's an anthropologist, and he knows much, much, much more than what the safety person knows, because the safety person thinks culture is systems and behavior.
Exactly.
So, so you know, uh, you've got to get used to the idea that most people in safety are trained at beginner steps only. And if they want to learn more about, say, culture or uh, big issues beyond their training, they need to step up to a different way of thinking, a different education, a different method. And a lot of people don't want to give it that time. They've got
Yeah,
enough. They can do the safety job as it is. Why should they do any more than policing? So police the regulation, and that seems where a lot of people want to stop. They don't step up to doing anything much more deeply. That's about it.
great. Professor, time flies when you are having good conversations. It's been
Yeah,
like
well, look at the
45
clock.
minutes already.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
the final question to let you enjoy your day, and it's
yeah,
also already 9:30 p.m. here in Brazil.
yeah.
So how should organizations measure progress when they adopt SPoR approaches? What metrics and signals or you know matter most? What they can, how can they check if they're in the correct direction?
Okay. Um, the most important things in life can't be measured.
Yeah.
The most important things in life can't be measured.
I translated the book from the Norwich guy that it says if you can, Karsten Bush, you probably heard about him.
Yeah,
If,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, if you can't
He's
measure,
he's
maybe you shouldn't.
he's an yeah, he's an engineer.
Yeah, he's an engineer, but he has
He's
this
an
nice
engineer.
book. He has this book. If you cannot measure,
Uh,
maybe you should
yeah, I
not.
know. Yeah, I know. But I wouldn't be going to him either with advice on culture.
No, no, no. But just mentioning
But
the sentence of
but,
measuring stuff.
yeah, I'll give you a better slogan.
Wow.
Okay.
Give me.
I'll give you a much better slogan than that, which is we should only count the things which can't be counted. So
Really nice.
you can't count or get a metric for trust.
No.
Yet organizations succeed and fail on trust and distrust alone.
Yeah.
So all of the most important things for organizing in safety are not metric. When you start saying, I need a metric to demonstrate success, then I will say to you, okay, please demonstrate the success of your marriage. How are you going to do that, Hugo?
I
How are you
cannot.
going to demonstrate? Well, are you married?
Yes, I am. I
Okay, how
think
many years? How many years have you been married?
18.
18. Okay, I've been married 51.
Wow.
So, does that mean on that metric that I'm more successful than you at marriage?
No, not enough information.
No, that's an attribution given to a number.
Yeah.
That's what safety does with numbers.
Yeah.
You can't make a qualitative decision about the quality of your marriage simply because someone gives you a number of 51, another one gives you a number of 18. The
Exactly.
quality of a marriage is not determined by a number.
Exactly.
So, so I go to organizations and say,
Thank
I
you.
actually don't care. I don't care what your injury rate
One of the
is.
results of my.
Oh, there you go. How old is he? How old?
E quantos anos você tem? How old are you?
10 years old.
10 years old.
And he's Ultraman Zero.
Yeah. Vai lá. 10 years
Yeah,
old. He's practicing his
10.
English.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, the things that 10-year-olds need can't be measured. Love,
No,
trust,
no.
listening, care. You
Respect.
can't, yeah, you can't give any measurement or metric to the most important things in life. So
No.
our leaders in organizations have to concentrate on what we call in SPoR higher level goals and don't let the lower level goals, which can be counted like injury rates, don't let that change your decisions about what you do at that level. So again, beginner safety counts injury rates, but injury rates are not an indicator at all of anything at the higher cultural level of how organizations work.
Perfect. I loved the answer and I agree. Unfortunately, somehow the whole system is structured in a way that this answer is not accepted by the companies, but it's
Yeah, yeah.
really logical.
But the
Professor,
funny thing, the funny thing is, Hugo, these leaders and these managers would never go home to their families and use the same strategies in their families that they think they should use in their organizations. They
provocative
don't. They
statement.
don't. Well, they don't. They
Yeah,
they use this method here, but you would never do it in your family because it won't work. It
yeah,
doesn't work.
exactly.
Anyway, yeah.
No, but I like this. I like this topic so much. I think this is a deep, way of thinking. It goes far beyond from what we usually discuss in safety.
Yeah, it does.
So
Yeah.
thank you, Professor. To finalize, some quick questions with short answers,
Okay.
if you may.
Yeah, sure. The quick
Uh,
ones, they're always fun. Yep. Yeah.
one book or paper that everyone in safe should read.
Metaphors We Live by Lakoff and Johnson. It's free online. Metaphors We Live By, it's called.
Great. One common myth about safety you wish would disappear. In my case, zero harm.
Yeah, that's one. Um, I think I think I think I would either agree with that or I would say that the idea of certainty should disappear.
Great. A single practical tip for managers to use still this week.
Uh, Stop thinking about yourself and start listening to others.
Okay. One habit you practice personally to stay sharp on risk thinking.
A habit
Yeah,
is to ask open questions rather than closed questions.
great. Something that you created that you are proud of.
IQ method.
Wow. Yeah, that's something to be really proud about. Dr. Hoblong, where can viewers find your work? You mentioned your website. Do you wanna say
Yeah,
what's the
there are
website
there
you
are,
put? You can tell them.
there are three websites. The
Okay,
first one is called Human Dimensions. That's where all the books are.
okay.
So you spelled it with a
You
you spell it with
you
a
can
Y.
write in the board. Yes, that works well.
Yeah, yeah. So Human Dimensions
Dimension.
.com. That's it.
Okay,
Humandimensions.com. The
okay.
other one is SPoR.com.au, and the other one is CLLR.com.au. And that's where all my work is. If you want the books and videos, and there are also talking books on that website here. This one here, the top one, humandimensions.com. Many, many free resources, cost you nothing. If you want to learn about what I do in SPoR, then jump on that Human Dimensions one. But the other two sites are there as well. And there are lots of links to videos and books and audio books and stuff. Yeah.
Professor, all the books we created, also we donate all the money that came from it. So I really
Yep.
appreciate the way you deal with this, everything for free. We have our books, this black one, for free to download, and everything is donated. So I think the knowledge sharing is
Yep.
a great part of your work. I
Yep.
want to thank you so much for accepting the conversation with me. It's an honor. I'm a really uh, great follower of your work with Gilval and all the folks here. I really
Mm.
appreciate everything you've done for the
Thank
Brazilian
you.
community, many trainings and courses for free. You know,
Yep.
it's not common in our world. So
Yep.
congratulations on your whole trajectory, your work, your character, your way of living, and your way of sharing everything with people. And it's a great pleasure having you in my channel. I think it's one
Great.
of the highlights of the channel because of the deep answers you gave, the provocative problems that you brought up, and I think it's gonna make me personally and the viewers better if they take the opportunity to go deeper in things that we
Yep.
discussed here.
Yeah, well, and I'll finish with an invitation. If you want to fly halfway around the world to spend a week, you certainly can.
Wow, that's huge. I will
It
try.
just well, it just costs you a big airfare.
We
Yeah,
can try to work on this. It's a great
yeah.
opportunity. Thank
Okay.
you so much. I really appreciate it.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Professor.